Jar. So where is this artwork from? This work of art comes from Japan in an area that we refer to as East Asia. When was this artwork made? So this work of art is very, very old. It dates to about 3000 before Common Era. So it's maybe about 5,000 years old. And how old is that? I don't know about you guys, but I would have to live another 4,964 years to be as old as this jar. So pretty old. It's actually one of the oldest artworks in the BMA's collection. This work of art is called an earthenware jar. It means it's made of clay. Who made this? What ancient Japanese culture made this work of art? Now, while we don't know the name of the artist or artisan, we do know it was made by the Jomon culture. The Jomon culture is one of the oldest in Japan, and they were the primary tribes of Japan for thousands of years. They were hunters and gatherers. That means that they hunted animals for meat and they foraged for plants. But despite being hunter-gatherers, they developed an amazing ceramic or earthenware tradition. There are hundreds of jars similar to this one, but no two jars are alike. So why was this jar made? We don't know, but we have a couple of ideas. We think that these are for food storage, so food storage vessels, food jars. We're not entirely sure how they were displayed. Perhaps they were hung from rafters or poles in a hut or shelter. We think this because of the holes that are incorporated into the decoration at the top of the jar, these kind of wavy patterns. It looks as though a pole could fit through those holes. Another popular idea is that they were buried, probably about halfway in the ground, to keep what was stored inside of the jar cool. So basically, it's early refrigeration. It was a way to preserve food. The theory of the jar being buried actually makes sense because when looking down on the jar, you would then be able to see not only the contents that were kept inside, almost like how we have clear storage bins today, but you would also get to see this amazing, elaborate decoration that surrounds the top of these jars. Let's take a closer look. If you look closely, you're going to notice a texture-like pattern on the surface of the body of the jar. This is called cord impressed pattern. It's called this because the Jomon people would take a rope and press onto the wet clay, or sometimes they would roll it over the surface of the wet clay to get this decoration. In Japan, the technique of rolling a cord or rope over wet clay is called jomon. So that's where the jar and the culture get the name. Fun fact, when the curator was looking at this artwork to consider acquiring it for the BMA's collection, the rope pattern on the bottom of the jar was not there. But the curator loved the jar nonetheless, and he just had to have it. The jar was then shipped to Birmingham, and when it arrived, it was in 3 pieces. It broke on the journey here. But no reason to fear the BMA's conservator. A conservator is a skilled person who restores and preserves artifacts and artworks. So she went right to work on restoring the jar. And what's fun is she noticed that there was some kind of coating, we call that a wash, on the jar, and that there was a pattern underneath this wash, this coating. So she asked the curator if that was supposed to be there and if she should remove the coating, and he said yes. So now the jar looks the way it was always supposed to look.